So here we are back inside my father-in-law's big pole barn. Shout out to him for letting us use it, at least not complaining too much when we do use it. But pulled in here instead of my garage because we're going to mess with some fuel or change over some fuel lines, and that usually leads to a little bit of fuel dripping out. Even if you do it perfectly, a little bit drips out, and it gets on the cement. It kind of creates a mess on the cement. But this is just a little game plan. Make a little video here showing we are going to get her ready for her second run again. Ran it just a couple nights ago at Jefferson County Fair, July 20th, 2024. Had a good run. Ended up winning the windshield class. It wasn't as big this year. It was only 9 cars. I say only 9 cars. That's still a decent amount of cars. And the back end, we smashed in real good. Front's untouched. Just going to do a simple thing under the hood I'm going to mention here. But you can see how the back end, she is almost split down all the way through there. Again, the fuel tank, we're going to unbolt and move forward. The fuel lines, I mentioned briefly, but that's where I had them run. And again, I can't believe how much it buckled in, but the pit was so big and there wasn't nearly as many cars as there has been the last couple years. So it was some high-speed impact, and I tried to keep the back end to all that. At the end of the Derby there, I should have gone a little bit more nose first whenever the two guys run the clock into their axles, but we were fortunate no one refired because I didn't have to worry about this as I pressed it all the way to my tank. But we're going to unbolt that, slide her up here, probably try to turn it sideways. I might be able to reuse that existing seat belt there, bolt, or seat bolt, I should say, not seat belt, but seat bolt. If it's sideways, we'll see. If not, I'll just drill new hole. Not a big deal there. Probably going to run the main fuel line under the seat. I'll cut in, again, the fuel lines run back under the driver's seat. I'll cut probably about right under my seat. I have it currently cut back here and then run in, but I'll cut it all the way up here and reattach that main fuel line there. The overflow I have back here. Now, again, that line I mentioned in my prior videos is bizarre. It's so much bigger than a normal fuel line. And once it gets back here, it splits. And right where it splits is where it was a little smaller. And that's where I kind of took in my line. Well, again, it's pressed up there. So under the hood, I'm going to show here in a moment, I should be able to easily hook up there. My hose should be long enough, and I'll just run it over the dash like I did Cobalt that my buddy Lucas helped set up before I got off on. Back here, we're going to hook up right now. I have a winch. I'm going to hook up the controller I bought for it. I'm hoping it works, because if that works, that will be a lot easier. I'll just first probably pull the axles, try to pull just them a little straight and try to press down, make this even more compact, make that hard, even though it's broken along kind of the sides here. Again, you can see here, not quite as high, but right through there, you can see down the ground all the way up to here. But I'm going to try to straighten that out, and then I'm going to do the same. I'm going to put hopefully, we'll see here, I'll make another update, but put the cable for the winch in front and anchor the front of the car in the trailer and try to pull it back. And then we'll see if I can do some kind of welding. That's the plan. Not sure if that will work. And if my winch controller I got doesn't work with my winch, then I guess I'm going to use a tree. So we'll see. So the only other thing I wanted to note before I'll pop the hood here real quick is under the hood, again, the fuel line is, let me see if I can find it here with holding, it's kind of hard to see, but right there, let's see if I can get this stuck up. There we go. But right there, I'll double check, but I do believe this guy right here, it's kind of hard to see, it's right in there. That is the return. The main fuel line is here, and again, it runs back and I'll hook in, but that's where I'll hook in there and then just run over the dash, secure it. Shouldn't be a big deal or difficult at all with that. The other thing though, and I believe it's hard to see, but it's like right back here, I believe, but I'll double check. Shout out to, again, I appreciate people that have more knowledge than me or just more experience, and they make a comment. Never even thought of this. So this, if I can get on camera, this is from AutoZone, and these are just plugs in essence. You can see this is a 4-pack, has an 8/4, 3/8, and a 1/2 inch plugs there. I think 3/8 inch is the one that is that I'll use. But instead of having to get another not control, but a sensor for the coolant, a coolant sensor, and a dummy, if you will, and then unplug the main one and leave it in there, I'm just going to unscrew it, plug one of these in where it is, because again, that's an open line unless you weld it or do something. So yeah, just these simple little pipe plugs, AutoZone, I'm sure Auto Parts or maybe Walmart have them. So that should easily work. And then the coolant sensor again will be my dummy, and I'll just hook it up, and I'll just take these off and should be able to reuse them. They were 10 bucks for the 4-pack. So appreciate the comment that was made there. I did not know it was that simple. Instead of buying a dummy, which is probably at least 20 bucks or more, there you go. So that's the game plan. We'll make an update. Don't have a ton of time. We're camping. But we think this Accord, again, she's got a lot of fight left in her. And worst case, we're going to go nose first and test our welding in that Caravan bumper. So here we go. So just a little update and a little view. Unfortunately, my winch that is on my trailer and seems in good working order, the controller I got, either the batteries are junk or I'm not sure, but I don't have it's a particular battery. So wasn't able to use the winch to try to beat her back straight and bend her out. So we used the tree ratchet strap, and I hooked up behind each of the wheels, and it did pull this wheel just a little bit out. It was pinched in a little bit, not a lot. I mean, we're talking maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches. But it is, if you look, it is in essence not only straight, but it's actually a little bit outside of straight coming back. This one, however, is just a tiny bit. Maybe I moved it back, but it's still, as you can see, still pinched in a little bit. Not too bad. And again, all I did, took the sledge, took the top of the trunk off. It kind of just peeled right off. And then again, I already beat it some, but I'm gonna beat it some more, not only around the wheels. You can see how I beat it with the sledge. That's the little guy, the big guy's over there. But up and in, not only making it more compact and tight, but keeping it away from those tires, which even with the spares and the tires are all cut up. The one's got pretty much in stable condition, I guess you'd say. It's just flat. I'm gonna put on this side, the straight side with a little more space. That one was over here. It was cutting in. The sheet metal was in the door. I'm going to cut off that excess rubber and put it over here where it's a little bit tighter. But they're really just kind of rolling, and in particular, just keeping me off the ground. So that's really their purpose. But beat that in, beat this in. We'll beat it down a little bit more, again, making it tough. The thing, though, I wanted to show on top of that is I'm going to ask, because I am perhaps going to try to just touch up weld a little bit there, but I mean, that's really not going to do anything. I was thinking about it, unless I put like some sort of metal over it. Same thing over here. So what I'm going to do is, this guy, you can see how the doors were almost from the rear end pressing up and under. And by the way, you can see a little more clearly now how the whole rear end, in particular here, that kind of gas tank mount, the whole subframe, whatever it is, that it's bizarre, these Accords. It's why you can't drop the tanks. It's still in there. You can see how it's ripping down out of the front, and it already had pushed the floor of the back seat forward, and now it's ripping down. So that's why it's doing that damage. But what I'm going to ask if I can do is, with my rear bar, I'm going to ask again, I'm going to move the tank up. Before I unhooked it, I wanted to see if I could get the rear wheels at least straight, and then I just kept going on the back end. But I'm going to see, instead of just trying to touch up my welds there, I'm going to see, because there is a rule it can't touch the ground, but I don't think there's a rule. I'm actually going to message the promoter that it can't be, say, like 8 inches off the ground right in front of that. So I'm going to get it down about right here, say about 6 inches off, so that it'll make that rear right there more stable, because there's really no way that I can make this more stable unless I started welding like extra metal to it, and I don't think that's allowed at all. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna message him and see what he says. Otherwise, just a little bit more, again, beating down the back end. And I think she's gonna be a little tougher than I thought she could be in the back, but we'll see. Get to the fuel next. So question for you, sir. You can see again how my rear end here is pulling away on both sides. It's doing it over there too. From the rear end, kind of pushing under. And again, I'm going to move my tank up. My question is, my rear bar, I know it can't be touching the ground, but would I be permitted to break it off where I have it and weld it, say about right here, so it's a little bit above this ground, but it's just helping to keep, so just kind of in front of the top of that, going across to just kind of help keep the rear end stable. Would that be permitted? If you'd let me know, I'd appreciate it. Just a little update here, as we've got her inside, we've got her wheels on. Again, that one I pulled actually the rubber completely off, and pretty good clearance. Got her jacked up right now as we're working on the fuel. But the tank in here, again, I was able to just unbolt it and then turn it, and I used again that seat bolt for that corner, and then this guy just drilled, and the washer on both top and bottom. Got a piece of board under there, and she's looking good. She's stable, good. And again, my lines are long enough. I'll run them behind, but I'll actually probably use zip tie to keep them high in case that were to crush all the way in. I haven't gotten an answer back about the bar, so might just have to leave it there. Don't want to have to, the afternoon of, try to change that, and might not really do much anyways. That press up to there, and that's fine because I'm gonna have my fuel lines up and under the seat, and the other line gonna be running in. So battery box is good to go where it is. Just move those wires a little, but I wanted to show before I get into taking the lines off. Again, I mentioned in my aftermath video, as well as I believe the start of this one, I really did not keep track of my vehicle, especially the rear end that I was solely using, you know, which is normally what you want to do, but with that big of a track and that much space, that many hits. So here is the fuel, I don't know, thing that's always in the back of cars. This one was in front of the tank. Usually it's behind it. But as the rear end was pushing the tank and this kind of core that the tank's in forward, it pushed that, and you can see how fortunate I was. It pushed it, and again, that spray foam I've been peeling out to get back to my lines, it just pushed it past over top to where if it, for whatever reason, pushed it down, could have very well ruptured my lines. And you can see the return is actually, it's hard to see, but right there's the screws for the return. So it actually pushed it, and I had spray foam all around it. Again, I think spray foam, I know it says it's flammable, but I put it all around my fuel lines. Like, again, where I'm cutting through the car, I do it. It not only secures it, but it kind of gives a little bit extra padding. Same thing up front in the rails. So, yeah, fortunate. Need to definitely be more aware, and with this car in the second run in particular. But, yeah, we're going to unbolt them. And then, again, I'm going to move my fuel line up here about underneath the seat. And then the return line will run over the dash. So, there we go. And here we are, one final look before we load her on the trailer. It's the day before the Derby, but I gotta head to camp. We're camping about 30 minutes from the Derby, so it's actually on the way. But we think we got her as good as we could. So just to show up front the last couple things, again, we have a pipe plug. You can't quite see it, but it's down in. It's down in right behind there is actually where, and you can see, there it is now zip tied right there. That is, again, our sensor that is telling the computer she's getting too hot, shut her down. Well, she's now just reading air. So that coolant sensor won't be an issue. It's secured. And that plug worked perfectly. Again, shout out if anybody watches these videos, and, you know, I try to mention things that I know or have been shared with me that help people, but that was something that was shared with me in the last video, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I did not even know that. I've been buying a second plug, which could range anywhere from 20 to 50 bucks. So yeah, geez, AutoZone, 10 bucks for a 4-pack. It was the smaller one I used in there, so that's set up. And then here, again, is our return line. So right there, and then it runs in. You can actually see the hose I've tied to, a little like filter system, and then it attaches there and runs through the car. Well, we are now right in and over. I just put some zip ties, a little spray foam there, just between the piece of like sheet metal and the fuel line. I like to do that as much as I can. And that is it up front. We are ready to go. Just a little excess spray foam I had left. I just sprayed again like I did before. Everything was secure, nothing moved. A little press on the hood and the scratch on the bumper from the one time, or the two times I guess I tried to hit the guys. Put a little spray foam on the brake system here, just between. I didn't do it last time. I actually forgot I meant to. And then just a little bit of excess I put around the radiator, just kind of help keep it stable, as we're likely going to be a lot more nose forward. But the tank, again, good and secure. Again, there's my line coming in, the return. And then you can see what I did. I cut underneath, right under the back of the seat, just drilled and then cut out a little space, bent it back with my pliers so it's as dull, or not sharp, I should say, as it could be. And then cut right about under the seat, and I feed in the line there, and I come up, just secured it there, secured it here, and I'll have it secured to that right there. I still have to fill a little bit. Again, that's how I fill this tank. It is tedious and tricky, but I'll have all that up on top of the tank, so there is nothing fuel line wise between kind of this part here, and you see how I lowered my bar. Jeremy, shout out to him in Derby Dog, that is. Promotions, they said that was fine to just have it a little bit off the ground and kind of just make it more stable there if it continues the rear end to press forward. So that is all good. Again, battery didn't need to move. I got my ratchet strap now completely behind my seat. Again, I cannot encourage you to do enough. Not only is a hand rest, but also secures your seat from breaking, especially if your rear bar isn't right against it, which I wouldn't do that because that hurts every time you get hit hard. Again, just secured the fuel line there with some zip ties. And then again, the back, it's hard here. We got it pressed in tighter on the wheels and down here in the trunk, cut off a little excess as I mentioned. That spare tire, we have the rim the whole way, or down to the rim I should say. This one's flat, but I didn't bother. And you can see there's a little bit more space, and this wheel was straight. So it's as tough as it can be in the back. So that is her. And just show a close up here, the fuel. Again, has a lot of life left. The Honda Accord, I definitely agree with guys, is tough. We're hoping to at least have some fun, maybe have another good run, end up fortunate down to the end playing for some trophies. We'll see. But 2004 Honda Accord, let's get her on the trailer. We're ready to go.